I'm Katlao Sohoto in Selby, Johannesburg.
As South Africa battles the electricity and water crisis, a move towards renewables is touted as a positive offshoot. From off-grid home living to big corporations going green, experts agree that it's a necessary shift. And the property sector is no exception, as it's also embracing sustainability as a way to future-proof construction in the age of climate change. For more on this conversation, we're joined by Novare Holdings Impact Officer Lerato Khumalo. Lerato, appreciate your time this evening. Now, let's talk about Novare Group recently receiving the ED champion status from the International Finance Corporation. Could you explain that recognition and what it entails and how it aligns with the Novare Holdings sustainability and environmental efforts in the property space?
Thanks. We're pretty excited about this acknowledgement. I think for us, it really affirms all the work that we've been doing over the last few years in our property portfolio, just really integrating ESG into all of our business processes. And I think this is the fruits of that labor. The acknowledgement through Edge Buildings, which is a tool developed by the IFC for green building certification. Really, the standard for the certification is that we aim at least to achieve 20% efficiency in energy, in water use and embodied energy of materials for each of these buildings that we get awarded a certification for. And really, this particular acknowledgement really acknowledges the fact that we've started on this journey on certifying our property portfolio, which is outside of South Africa, and really it's retail commercial buildings, and that we are going to further certify at least another 100,000 square meters around the continent, really underscoring to our investors and the stakeholders that we work with that, for us, total value creation and impact is not just buzzwords that are currently out in social discourse at the moment, that these are things that are part of Novare's DNA, and that we really believe that without environmental sustainability, social cohesion, and economic stability cannot be achieved. So we're pretty excited about this journey that we're on as we look forward to really just being able to certify further buildings in our portfolio.
Now, what impact have green building solutions had on the eco-friendliness and sustainability of Novare Holdings properties, both in terms of environmental benefits and operational costs?
Well, it's pretty huge. I mean, our buildings have been able to reduce energy consumption for our properties, which ultimately means that our tenants are able to benefit from us being that efficient with energy. In one of our buildings, well, more than one of our buildings, actually, two of our buildings, we've already installed solar renewable energy on our roofs, which means that our tenants also be able to ensure that they have sustainable green energy. We've managed to reduce our water consumption. In one of our buildings, we've reduced water consumption to less than 65 kiloliters per square meter in terms of our water use intensity. So these are really tangible benefits that we have managed to be able to attain by ensuring that we build and design green right from the onset in terms of our construction practices. This also means that we're able to have an opportunity to be able to educate our tenants with regards to, I suppose, more conscious use of these resources that are really quite scarce. So we're pretty excited about being able to reduce our carbon footprint overall. I think we've still got a bit more that we can do. And as new technologies come about, we're constantly assessing the opportunity that exists for us to be able to further enhance our efficiencies.
So let's talk about the customer or tenant experience. What are the benefits to your tenants, and what is the lived experience for them?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I think energy is one of the big ones, which is a big conversation globally at the moment, is that if we're able to reduce the cost of energy for our tenants, it's a great benefit to them. It means that they're able to I suppose, afford their leases more efficiently. And I suppose it also means that we are also having less of an impact on the environment in terms of carbon emissions through fossil fuels. But also our tenants are also really excited about the fact that, as you know, energy is a real problem on the continent. And so the fact that we can provide consistent energy supply to them is a real plus. And the fact that it's green obviously is really important. But also our tenants have become really aware about ESG, environmental and social governance issues, and what part they play in ensuring that they are environmentally friendly. So things like the recycling initiatives that we have at our buildings, the fact that we remind our tenants about efficient use of water, things like ensuring that the water, how we use drainage systems to ensure that we don't put unwanted substances into the water system, are things that are really starting to be a conscious thought in our tenants' minds as they work and operate these buildings.
Lerato, are there any particular green finance options or eco-mortgages that Novare Holdings has explored to fund more sustainable building projects?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're currently actually exploring an opportunity to further enhance our relationship with the IFC, who have several green products out there for property developers to really just continue to encourage us to do more to be able to benefit the environment as well as our tenants. One of these is GRIP. And with this GRIP initiative, we have the opportunity to be able to really just design our decarbonization strategy around the opportunity to be able to tap into some sustainable financing options through the IFC. And it's not just the IFC. Our local banks have come on board, and there are various green initiatives through the banking and financing systems that allow us to be able to really do more when it comes to property development and financing and investments on the continent.
Invariably, a big part of what you do is certifications. Now, talk to us about certifications and standards. Novare Holdings follows in the realm of eco-conscious construction. And how does this help attract environmentally conscious buyers and tenants?
That's always a very interesting question, particularly for Africa. I think in Africa, where we're still very much a developing market, especially in the space of green and sustainable buildings, the demand for having green buildings doesn't necessarily always come from the tenants. We obviously have some very astute tenants in the form of multinationals who are very vocal about what it is that they expect in terms of the operation of our buildings and the building performance. But for the most part, I think we are still very much leading the charge in terms of educating tenants to understand the great benefits that exist for them if we build correctly, if we build with green in mind, if we build with the intention of ensuring that we minimize our impact on the environment. So at this moment, we really don't have very many sort of green mortgages, green leases that we are really sort of signing with our tenants. However, I can see that we've been having more and more conversations and tenants coming to us and saying, can you really reduce the bill, the electricity bill and our electricity consumption? What does it mean in terms of recycling? How do we then contribute to the efforts that you're making? So I think on the continent, I think it's really very much still a developing conversation, but certainly in the more developed nations, particularly the US and in Europe as well, where our tenants are probably a lot more conscious, a lot more vocal, and they really hold the industry to account in terms of the performance of these buildings. And I think as time goes, we'll start to see potentially more regulation around these expectations to ensure that all of us as developers are responsible and conscious developers in reducing our carbon emission and the carbon impact.
Lerato, before we wrap, I'd like to know, how does Novare Holdings address waste management and reduction in the construction and operation of its properties? Are there specific tools or certifications employed to minimize the environmental impact of your properties throughout their life cycles?
Yeah. So when it comes to waste management, I think I mentioned earlier that we are very conscious about recycling. So right from the very beginning, our intention is to be able to reduce the embodied energy of the materials that we use. And by that means that we seek out to use materials that are closer to the locations where we're developing. We seek out materials that are, going to have a lower embodied energy. And this isn't always very easy, to be quite honest with you. And so, I think this is where I suppose the entire value chain needs to come together to be able to address these concerns, where how can we then employ more opportunities to be able to innovate and provide products that are going to have reduced impact on the environment. So recycling of bricks, for us to be able to have access to green cement and those kind of things. And so for us, waste management is really important because we really, what we do is that we monitor in terms of our water usage. We are very closely monitoring what our tenants, such as restaurants, your bakeries in the supermarkets, and what it is that they dispose into the drainage system, because that has an impact further down the line in terms of how municipalities are then able to more effectively deal with wastewater, for example. The recycling is definitely a very big part of what we do. And really, I think we hope we can be able to do more in future as more stakeholders come on board to be able to ensure that we can actually, access opportunities like other materials to build with.
Lerato, thanks for speaking to us. Lerato Kumalo is Chief ESG and Impact Officer at Novare Holdings. You're watching News at Prime. A reminder of our top stories at 7:30.